Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Charlie Coffeen. I'm here to do a little live production video with my friends at Arturia. I use this stuff all the time. This is my home studio here in Highland Park in LA, and I've been spending a lot of time here, all of my time here during this quarantine. So just kind of walking through Analog Lab, which I use all the time, and I also have the Arturia MkII. And the beautiful thing about these two pieces together is that they just sync super easily. So I'm just going to build something from scratch and kind of walk you guys through the steps as I go. And yeah, I'll just kind of deal with questions as they come up. So here, you can see I'm in Analog Lab, and I'm actually just controlling this from the keyboard itself. So a lot of times I'll like to start with like a keyboard or a pad or something like that, and build from there. And something I really like with all these vintage synths is just to be able to kind of capture the essence of that synth. So something like say a Prophet has a particular just sound to it and feeling. So this makes it really easy to kind of tap into that and just use that as a little bit of a jumping off point. So if you have an MkII or any other Arturia keyboards, they just sync with this stuff. So I'm not even touching my computer in Logic, and I'm able to scroll through sounds. There's also all these parameters here are totally controllable. So we can cut off, filter, all of that. Let me just get my metronome up here. Sounds about right. Maybe like 150-ish. I think it's only like max of 4 poly on this patch, so we'll do that again. So we'll just grab this. We're dealing with the piano roll. Cool. So that's just sound pretty much as is. I tweaked the cutoff filter just a little bit within Analog Lab, and then we'll throw some kind of just synth color. And then if you guys work in Logic, I like to bounce stuff in place all the time just to save keep things a little more organized. Cool. So if anybody's tuning in a little bit late, I'm just building something from scratch using Analog Lab and the MkII. These two things are just very smoothly integrated with each other. So just, yeah, building from scratch, going through synths, pulling up these vintage sounds that are in the V collection, and just making something and just kind of see where we end up. So I'll pull up some drums. This is, if anybody has not been living under a rock and spending time on Instagram during the quarantine, you've probably seen a producer and musician and drummer named Count Cole, who's just killing it with his videos and drum packs and sounds. So these are some sounds of his. I'll just. So if you notice, I usually like to play in my drums on all my videos too. I don't really type things into the piano roll very often, so a keyboard and like a key bed feeling really good is really important to me, and I like that about this MkII, being able to play drums in, and it just feels kind of meaty and it has that bounce to it, almost like an MPC. Just grab that first one more time, and then we got kick and snare in there. We'll just grab these hats real quick. Cool, and then we got a pretty basic little drum loop. So we'll go back into Analog Lab and just start layering and building things. And this is usually how I create. Sometimes I'll be going for, a particular vibe, and I'll start with drums or start with a sample, or start with, like I was talking about, a particular synth, like, DX7 or whatever, if I want like a 90s feel, or it could be anything, a Moog. Or sometimes I'll just start with like a Rhodes and build from there. I really like this mini. It's kind of very Moogish for basses, synth basses. Like that is just a great fat sound. And often I'll tweak the cutoff on basses just to get some of those highs off, just basically like a high pass filter. Play that in. Grab that little note, and then we'll just keep building. So yeah, if anybody's just tuning in, I'm just building something from scratch here, trying to keep it all within Analog Lab, except for some drums from my guy Count Cole, who you should definitely check out if you don't know him. Yeah, basically these two things just make it really easy to create on the fly, which is just what I like to do. I come from a very much of like a jazz and gospel background, so being able to essentially improvise within the software is important to me. Anything that gets the technology out of my way in the creative process is good. That's what I want. I want to be able to just make stuff and not have the technology get in my way. So like even right now, scrolling through these sounds, I can do all that just from the keyboard. Scrolling through here on the MkII. And then I have control over all these parameters also on the keyboard itself, and these automatically map to whatever patch you're doing. So right now I'm on this organ patch, and these are drawbars, and obviously we have the Leslie control over there. Yeah, we could put that in. There's that organ, which yeah, so I mean, usually when I'm building something like this, I just layer, and I'm always trying to be conscious of what I want the end product to be at this point. I shouldn't say always. In the beginning, I'm trying to just get some ideas out and see where they go. But once things start to take shape, yeah, just try and be mindful of, do I want somebody to sing on this? Do I want, is this for a rapper? Is this an instrumental? Is this going to have a solo? Because I'm all about subtlety in creating, and so I don't ever want to have too much stuff going on just to fill up space. I did a record in a bunch of sessions with Sput Seawright, legendary producer and drummer and keyboard player, and he had a great thing about a track feeling full. And to me, that doesn't necessarily mean full in terms of space, like every single moment is filled with sound, but it can just mean done, so 2 notes could make 4 measures feel full. And I just try and be mindful of that all the time. I don't need to be playing all the time and filling up all the space. We can put that in. That's just a nice little clav from Analog Lab. That's right here. Great sound. Yeah, we'll just keep going. Cool. I'm gonna dig around and see what we find for like a lead type of sound in here. Let me save this real quick. And again, like I said before, there's really easy integration with the hardware and the software for these two things. It just makes it really easy to create on the fly, explore sounds. I think as producers, we can sometimes get locked into using maybe the same samples all the time or the same keyboard sounds, which can be really dope when it's intentional, but I want it to be intentional. If I want to make a couple songs that all sound the same, that's great. But if I want to get inside, the Prophet and just explore and tweak sounds and go crazy, I want that to be really easy to just explore the sounds. We might have a little bridge or something. So that's the same bass we had before. That's in the MIDI, kind of Moog emulator, mini Moog type of vibe. Cool. So now we kind of have these two sections. It's nice. So I would probably, if we had a little bit more time, I would add some percussion layers and just some little subtle things, syncopation and stuff to fill up the sound. We'll double these up, both of these. go back into Analog Lab, see if we can find a little lead, nice little lead synth. So if you're looking at the Logic screen here, I'm not touching my keyboard at all. So I can go to synths on the MK1 and I'm scrolling through. If we're looking for a lead, super easy to just scroll through, find what you want and just start exploring through sounds. And then we'll go to lead up here. Bam. And the same thing, really just exploring. And there's tons of sounds here, so you could go forever. Stuff like that, like cut the, the cutoff and the filters. You have control over all of that just right in here. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so you could just go for days, and just the quality of the sounds is great, which is key. If you're creating in this type of environment, you've got to be starting with good quality sounds that sound full. And the sounds in V Collection are great. The MK2 just feels really good. And in this type of environment where I'm just trying to make something on the fly and let ideas go, and it just move really quickly when I'm creating, the setup works perfectly. Having Analog Lab and the keyboard and everything just working in sync with each other. We got to redo this clav. This is not sounding sweet. We'll do that one more time. Cool. I'm about done with this one. I might keep messing around with some leads or just exploring through some sounds. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them or just talk to y'all. This is a super dope just keyboard, like 90s, kind of R&B, like like Teddy Riley type of vibes on this keyboard. Yeah, like this right here. Yeah, we could put that in on this B section here. Sloppy over. Play this in one more time. And it's just a sound from the DX7, super dope, like 90s vintage, very digital sounding keyboard. pretty nice. So a couple questions came in. One, are the drum samples coming from V Collection? The kick, snare, and hat are from a producer musician named Count Cole, who is I think he's at Count Cole on Instagram. He's got tons of drum packs available for download. He's also puts out crazy videos every day. He's amazing. He does a lot of like analog, just very raw, just great sounding drums. So I use those all the time. But I don't play things. I don't type things into the piano roll. I play stuff in. So I'm playing that in on the MkII, which I said earlier, it just feels good. It has like a meaty weight to it. Kind of like an MPC or, drum pads used to feel. There's kind of a meat and like a bounce back to it, where it just doesn't feel very good to play in drums on like a flimsy little keyboard to me. What's the name of the second app being used alongside Analog Lab? Not sure which one, but I'm in Logic. I use Ableton occasionally, but primarily in Logic. The only other things I use Ultrabeat to play these drums in. I threw RC20, kind of like a tape emulation on a few tracks just to get some grit. I threw Logic like stock echo, and then I put on just some Valhalla reverb on one of the tracks. But everything else is straight out of V Collection, and tweaking the sounds and the parameters of the sounds on the keyboard itself. So if we had, you have this knob here where I can scroll through presets, and then all of these faders and knobs are just automatically mapped to the patch. So I was messing around on like an organ earlier, and when I have that organ patch up, all these faders are the drawbars, or usually like this far left will be cut off, or like a high pass filter. If you're turning a lead sound into a synth bass sound, dial that back and pull those highs off, and you're pretty much good to go. So that's a big plus for me, to be able to, if I don't have analog gear, at home, which I don't, to be able to tweak those sounds and make them my own. That's the beauty of analog gear, and this kind of like recreates that idea, just to mess around and explore. Yeah. If anybody's coming in a little bit late, just made this, I'm about done here, but just made this from scratch using sounds from Analog Lab and the MkII. Didn't really have an idea of what I was going to do beforehand, but here's what we ended up with. A lot of times would like to mess around with Verispeed in Logic, and take things down like after I finish them. Another question that just came in about other Arturia apps. I'm really not that familiar. I use Analog Lab all the time. I use these sounds all the time. Live as well. I do a lot of stuff live. And I rely on these sounds heavily. And I haven't really dialed into like the microbrood or any of that stuff. I would love to. They all look awesome. I messed with a few things at NAMM, but this is kind of my home base. This MkII and Analog Lab V Collection. It's really a big part of my workflow. So that's pretty much my time. Started at 9, going about 40 or 45 minutes. Thank you all for tuning in. I think this video should stay up if you want to send other people my way or send other people to Arturia's page to see how this stuff works. One more time, my name is Charlie Coffeen. I'm a producer, keyboard player based here in LA. If you want to follow me, I'm at Sidewalk Chuck on Instagram and Twitter, under my own name, Charlie Coffeen, on Spotify. I've been putting out a song per week during this quarantine. I have another one coming out on Friday called Still Sad. So thank you for tuning in. If anybody has more questions, just feel free to hit me up in the comments of these videos, or just send me direct messages on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or anywhere. I'd love to meet you guys more and talk more about production or whatever questions you may have. So thanks and peace.